Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, and today I'd like to show you another one of our great stamp sets. This one is called Celebrate Sunflowers, and there's a coordinating die set that goes with this as well. And we're going to use it to make this really cute card. I really love how it turned out. Now I know most of the time sunflowers aren't really blue, but I like blue and I liked doing something different out of the norm. So this is what we're going to do today. And then I have something on the inside. So I wanted to dress up the inside, but I didn't want to do anything too over the top. So I used the die cuts of the leaf with two different colors and really made something that looked a little different. And I've got a trick or a technique that maybe you haven't thought about for doing that makes it really, really easy to glue that down and keep it in shape while you're working with it. So stay tuned, definitely watch through the video till we get to that point. Okay, so let's talk about what we need for this card. We're gonna start with the early espresso, and this is the standard 8.5 by 5.5 scored in the middle at 4 1/4. Then you need a piece of this wood grain. Now we have different shades in the wood grain in our designer series paper, but I chose one that was lighter because I knew I was going to stamp on it and I was going to color on it. So if you choose a really dark one, it's not going to show up. So this is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. Then you're going to need a piece of basic white for the inside that's 5 1/4 by 4. And then you're going to need just a scrap of the early espresso and the basic white to do the sentiment. And for that, we're going to be using the Everyday Label Punch. And we're also going to be using the opal round gems. So we're going to be placing those on there as well. We're going to be using some Stampin' Blends. And let me show you the colors I've chosen. I used the light and the dark of, I'm trying to turn them so maybe the camera will pick up the names. The light and the dark of the Daffodil Delight. Then I'm also using the light and the dark of Mossy Meadow. Then I am using the light and the dark of the Night of Navy, and then just the dark of the Misty Moonlight. So I'm using 3 shades of blue, the light and the dark of the Navy, Night of Navy, and just the dark of the Misty Moonlight. Okay, so let's get started. So we're not using any of the dies today. We're just using the stamps. And so we're going to need to stamp our greeting on here, and we're going to need to stamp our sunflowers on here. Now let me show you. You can see that this is cut into strips, but you don't want to cut it before you do your stamping and your coloring, because if you do, it's going to be really hard to hold that together to stamp over top of it. So you want to do your stamping and your coloring, and then we're going to cut it into the strips. And these are, I just cut an 1.25 inches and made 3 strips, and that's how I did this. So you definitely want to do your stamping first, okay? So let's start with our greeting. And I'm using the Know That You Are Loved. And I'm just going to stamp that with the black Memento. Now you could have used the early espresso for this as well, and it still would have turned out beautiful. I just used the Memento. So, and I'm just going to stamp this down. Just like that. And then I'm going to bring in my Everyday Label Punch. And I'm just going to put this in here and center it up, get it where I want it. Just like that. And I'm going to punch that out. And while I've got the punch here, I'm just going to go ahead and bring in the early espresso. And I'm just going to go ahead and punch that as well. So we're done with that. And then I'm going to bring in the Stamparatus. For me, this is the best way to do it because what I found, and I would think anytime, I noticed that I have had this, but I would think with any designer series paper that you're stamping on, there's always the chance that the first stamp won't be as dark as you want it because of the colors in the paper or the designs in the paper. So I always use my Stamparatus. That way, if I need to stamp it a second time, it's perfectly placed and I don't have to worry about any problems with that. So if you don't have a Stamparatus, you've heard me talk about this in several videos. It's just a tool that's really, really worth having. One other thing that I didn't mention when I was going through what you'll need for this card, you'll need something to use as masks. And I guess I did use the dies because I cut out, and you can see these have already been used, but I cut out 2 of the large ones and 2 of the small ones, just the outline dies. Because and this is just copy paper. You could use junk mail, you could use actual masking sheets, you could use Post-it notes, whatever you have available. You just want to cut those out because you're going to use those in your stamping. So let me go ahead and get I'm going to start with my large sunflower, and I stamped this once, but if you notice, there's part of it that is like curled. I put that towards the middle, but you could definitely do this any way you wanted. And you can just figure out where you want your big sunflower, how much of it you want to show. And I think right about there. So I'm just going to close my lid. And again, I'm using the black Memento ink, and I'm just going to ink this up. Make sure I've got plenty of black ink on there. And then I'm just going to close this, and I have a tool that I use just to apply a little more even pressure. And then we'll check it. And you can see it can be, you know, it might take a couple times just to get all the ink where you want it and to get it as dark as you want it. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can stamp as many times as you need to with the Stamparatus, and it's going to be perfectly placed, and it's going to be exactly right on top of your previous stamp. And it's still not stamping down, so I'm going to do it a 3rd time. Looks like there's plenty of ink on there. I just need to get the pressure in the right place to get a good stamped image. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to pull this off. I'll clean it at the end of the video. Now I'm going to come in with my smaller one, and I'm going to need to put on my masking. And the reason I keep the curled leaves to the center is that's going to make that easier to line this up because those are more distinct, that the petals are slanted, so they're a little easier to match up. So I'm just going to keep turning it until I find out exactly where this goes. It goes right in here. So I'm going to do I'm going to do a flower up in here. And you always want to put your mask a little inside the lines. If you put it outside the lines, you're going to have a gap in your stamped images. So always put it to the inside. And I'm just going to move my magnets around so I can get a really good hold on that. And I'm going to figure out where I want this. And I want a little bit of that leaf in there, so I'm going to turn this like this. Just like that. I'm going to close this, and then we're just going to stamp it. Just going to ink it up. And then I'm going to close it. And that's a pretty good image like that. And so I only have to stamp it once. I am going to bring in my towel and clean this up because I'm going to be putting it right back down in another spot. And if you've got excess liquid in your towel that you're using to clean, you want to make sure to take a dry one and go over that, because if you go ahead and use that with it wet, you risk the chance of getting some wet blackish ink on your piece. So always make sure that it's dried off in between. Okay, so now I'm going to bring the next one in, and I'm going to stamp it. I'm not going to get the leaves on this, I just want the flower. So I'm going to come about right there. That looks good. Same process, we're just going to ink it up. And press it down. Okay. Again, we need to clean this off so we can reuse it. And we're going to move it again. And I think I'm going to use my small mask so I can come in here. Again, going a little inside the lines. And I'll put this up here because I want this to overlap a little bit. Trying to see how much of the leaves I want and where I want the placement of everything. I'm going to move my magnet just a little. And I'm going to move, I want to move my big mask inside the line as well. I've got my little one inside the line, but I need to move my big one inside the line as well. So I'm just going to hold those down, put my magnet back down. This magnet over here, and we're ready to stamp. So I'm just going to stamp that one right there. And there's no perfect placement. It's however you want it to look. So I'm just inking that up again. I'm going to press that down. And I think I want to do it just one more time. Okay, now I'm ready to do some leaves. So I'm going to bring in the leaf. So I'm going to move this for the moment. And let me see, let's put this over here. Again, inside the image. I need to move this inside the image. And you want to avoid that. You can break your magnets or hurt your fingers if you let them collide. So don't do what I just did. Okay, so I've got that inside. And I've got this inside, so I'm just going to put that there. And then I'm going to bring in another small mask. Turn that over. And I had it right the first time. So I'm just going to line this up. Again, a little bit inside. Put my magnet down. And I want to do a leaf right in here. So I'm just going to slide this magnet this way so I can make sure that it'll stamp down. Let's close this up. Ink it out. And that looks pretty good. And I want to do one more leaf. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to move this inside a little just to protect my big flower. Trying to make sure I get it lined up. Has to be around in there. Yep, that's it. It's much easier to align it with these little ones inside than it is the other ones. Okay. It's not real. I'm not really going to need the big one for where I'm going to place the leaf. So then we're just going to line this up on here. There we go. Just going to line that up there. Put that like that. And I'm going to clean off my leaf so I can reuse it. And I'm just going to put a leaf over here. Again, just inking it up. Stamping that down. There we go. So I'm just going to pull this up. We're done with this. Okay. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to bring in a scrap. Something to keep in mind, if you color with your Stampin' Blends, it's going to bleed through the back. So if you want to protect your surface. So I just have a scrap piece of cardstock that I'm using behind it. Now I'm going to show you the process of what I did, but I'm not going to color all of the image here on the video. I have another one all ready to go, but I'm going to show you what I did with each part. So I started with the 2 shades of the Daffodil Delight. I started with my darker one. And you can see in the center of the sunflowers, you have a smaller, lighter part, and then you have a ring to it. So I just took this on the ring, the darker ring part. And then along the black circle that goes around, I just came in with, I just colored along that. Just a line. Doesn't matter how far down you come, just a line. And I did that on each one. Just went around that, and then just a little bit of a line inside the black circle with the dark Daffodil Delight. Just like that. Then I came in with my light Daffodil Delight, and I went in the very center, and then I just kind of, I usually start from the dark part, the outer edge, and come towards the middle, and I'm just pulling that darker color in, but yet I want the lighter shade too. So I'm just kind of pulling that towards the middle, just like that. So I do the inner one, and then I just pull this color. Now you can repeat this as many times as you want to get the color, the shading that you want. That's all you need to do for that. Then I'm going to come in with my Mossy Meadow, and I'm going to use the dark first. And I just, you can see these feather-like lines in the leaf. I just kind of almost even just scribble right on top of those dark lines. Just like that. Just go over the lines that the designer already has there. Then I come in with my light Mossy Meadow, and I pull again from the center. I pull out toward the edge. And sometimes I pull from the edge towards the middle, just around these cuts in it, so I don't go out of the lines too much. So then I'm just going to pull from the middle. And that just gives us some shading on it. And then for the sunflower, I came in with my, if you look at the shades, the darkest of the three shades is the dark Misty Moonlight. So I started with that, and I went right along the base of the sunflower where the petals connect to the center. And then again, I went along those lines that the artists give us. Just like this. Just like that. And some of these underneath petals that come down farther, I would do just a little bit down in the connection where they came together. Then I took my dark Night of Navy, and I just went along, I made a V in the tip. The tip has a V to it, and I just went over that, just right in the tip with the dark Night of Navy. Just right at the tip, just like that. Then I came in with my light Night of Navy, and I would pull up from the middle, and then I would come down from that dark tip, and then I'd bring them together and blend them. So I come up from the middle, and I don't know that you have to do it in a prescribed order. That's just how I did it. Up from the middle to pull that dark, and then down from the top to pull that other shade of blue in. And you can see how it gives you like a variegated shading with all the different blues. Just like that. I don't know if you can see all the different pretty blues that you have in there, but that's how I colored it, and I just did the whole thing. I'm going to move these things out of the way, and I'm going to show you the one that I already have done. So I did this before the video so we could have it ready to go. And then we're going to need our trimmer. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and I'm going to cut 1 1/4 inches. So I'll just put it in and make my first cut at 1 1/4 inches. And then I'll cut the next strip at 1 1/4 inches, and that will leave one that's 1 1/4 inches. So you end up with 3 different strips, just like that. Okay, I'm gonna set that out of the way. Now, let's talk about our leaves. So I die cut the leaves. I did Old Olive and Mossy Meadow. And so you end up with these little pieces. So I wanted to inlay the dark into the light, and I wanted to inlay the light pieces into the dark. So I just used my take your pick tool. The end has this gummy stuff on it, and that makes it real easy to pick these little pieces up and just set them in there. And I'm doing it on my glue mat because it helps hold them in place while I get them all where I want them. I've got all the inlay pieces in and ready to go. So I'm going to show you how I did this. So I'm just going to move this over for just a second, and I'm going to bring in my card base. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put our piece of basic white. We're going to go ahead and attach it. It's just going to go right in here like this. So I'm going to bring in my glue. Let's get some glue on the back. And we're just going to adhere this down. Now for the trick. Now for the, and I know that you could do this with press and seal, but I like the product I'm going to use better because it's stiffer. So let me show you. This is clear, transparent contact paper. I got this roll, and you can see I've already been using it. I got this at the dollar store for $1. And there's a lot in the roll. I started using this for some Cricut projects, and then so when I went to do this inlay, I thought, oh, what a great way to hold my leaf together. So let me show you. You just peel the back paper off of this, and you can use a little piece and you can use it multiple times so it goes really far. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press my darker one down on top of this. I want to make sure I get this where you can see it. And when I pull this up, it keeps all the pieces perfectly in place. So I don't have to worry about, you know, press and seal's a little more flimsy like. So this, I found this is a really good way to keep everything together. It allows me to get my glue on it and then to transfer it to my other sheet. Okay, so all I did is came in with my liquid glue, and I just went over top of the inlays and got my glue on there. And then you just turn this, and because it's see-through, you can see exactly where you're putting it. So I put it down where I want it, and you just press down on it because that's gluing it to your paper. And when you peel it up, all your inlay pieces are perfectly where you want them. And they're glued down, and that's it. That's all there is to that. So now I'm going to come in with the other one, and I'm going to press this down. And if your inlays shift a little bit, just move them. That one's a little shifted, so I'm just going to try to move it just a tad. There. And I'm just going to press this down. Now when I turn it over, if I got one shifted, like this middle one, I can always just manipulate it a little bit before I put the glue on it. Get it back in its spot. And I'm just pressing them down on the contact paper. That's going to hold them perfectly in place while I get my glue on here. So I'm just adding my glue. I love this clear contact paper. Okay, now I'm just going to lay it over top of the other one and kind of tilt it a little bit. And and then just press down on it. That's adhering the glue to the cardstock. And then when you peel this up, it stays perfectly in place. All your inlays look really nice, and it's already glued down to your paper. Isn't that really cool? It's a really easy way to do it. And I found that the hardest part was getting the inlays set originally, but once you have them set, that contact paper makes it really easy to get them down on your cardstock. So now we are at the point of ready to put our, I call them slats on the front because it's meant to look like wood slats. So remember, if this is the inside and this is going to fold over, this has to be our front that we want to decorate. And these are going to go on here just like this. So I'm going to start with my bottom piece. See, you can see how it bled through. That's why you always want to protect your surface and either put a piece of cardstock underneath while you're coloring, or a piece of silicone mat or something, so you protect your work surface. So I got my liquid glue on there. And I'm just going to come down here. Let me turn this around so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to give myself a border, line it up, and glue that down. Then I'm going to come in with my next piece. Add my glue. And I want to leave a little space in between, because that was the whole point of my slat look, to have my slat look. So I want to leave just a little space in between. Now before that can dry real good, I'm going to measure and make sure, yeah, we're good on our spacing. So I'm just going to come in and put some glue on this. We're going to add our final slat to our piece. Just like that. Now for our greeting, I am going to cut, and this does not have to be straight, does not have to be perfect. Just cut your early espresso label in half. And we're just going to put some glue on that piece. And then we're just going to put the stamped piece, we're just going to leave ourselves a little border. So we're going to line it up, make sure the top and bottom are lined up, and just give ourselves a little border. Just like that. And because I'm using the liquid glue, I have a little time. If I didn't get it straight, I can always manipulate it a little bit, just like that. Okay? So then we're just going to repeat that with the other side. Just like that. We're going to line it up for the top and the bottom. Try to keep it the same size border as the other side. Just like that. And there you have your early espresso outline. Just like that. And then I'm going to come in with some Stampin' Dimensionals. I'm just going to put these down. remove the backing. Make sure I got the backing off of all of them. Yeah. And we're just going to place this right about there. And then I'm going to come in. I'm using the smaller of these. So I started with 1. I'm going to be using 3. And I wanted 1 right in the middle of my big sunflower. And then I'll put 1 up here. And 1 over in here. And then we're ready to crease this. And I'm just going to use my bone folder and go over the crease. And that's going to give us our card. Here's the one we made today. Here's the one I showed you at the beginning. They may look a little different depending on where you placed your flowers and your leaves, but there you have it. A pretty easy card, but just full of personal touches that will truly say that the person that you're sending it to is loved. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel. If you have not already done it, check out Facebook. I have a group and a page. Be sure to like and follow the page and join the group. I do Monday night Stampin' Shares on Facebook Live on my page, and so you could take part in that. And each month I feature a different stamp set, and we do different things with that. So definitely check that out. You can see what projects are lined up for the rest of this month. And then be sure, if you want to order any of the products and you don't have a demonstrator, I'd love to help you out. You can go to my store at karensmith.stampinup.net and you can place your order there. And I will be back to craft with you again soon.